As the conflict grows more violent each day and nations are progressively deciding who to side with, I think now is the good time to recapitulate which countries are siding with Russia and which countries have decided to support Ukraine. If you want more context on the origins of this conflict, go check out the video I made a few weeks back on the topic. Without much surprise, most NATO, United Nations, G7 and EU members are all behind Ukraine. Most United Nations members voted to condemn Putin's actions. Both the US and the EU have imposed tight financial sanctions. USA, being the most influent NATO member, has offered heavy financial aid, over $1 billion. NATO has sent military packages to support Ukraine, including advanced weapon systems, air defense systems, anti-tank systems, as well as training their forces to withstand Russian attacks more efficiently. This has worked quite well so far, as Russia's advance has been somewhat halted and the conflict slowed down, much to Putin's dismay. However, there has been no direct military intervention so far by any NATO troops to avoid direct implication in the conflict. USA and its allies must follow a fine line, steering clear of World War III while putting their foot down to prevent authoritarian regimes like Putin's from doing as they please. Looking closer at the individuals, Ukrainian President Zelensky has urged France's Macron and especially Germany's Scholz to act less reluctantly. Scholz, who suffered heavy criticism trying to avoid direct opposition to Russia, has only just begun to invest in military defense, while Macron announced sending tanks to Ukraine was a red line for Europe. Meanwhile, Britain's Boris Johnson has offered similar aid to the EU, but his comparisons between Brexit voters and Ukrainian fighters has also sparked heated debate.
And I know that it's the instinct of the people of this country, like the people of Ukraine, to choose freedom every time. I can give you a couple of famous recent examples. When the British people voted for Brexit in such large numbers, I don't believe it was because they were remotely hostile to foreigners. It's because they wanted to be free.
However, Russia's oil and gas supply is a factor that explains some European countries' restraints, especially Italy or Germany, who import a third of their gas from Russia. At the opposite end of the spectrum, some authoritarian regimes are openly supporting Putin. Belarus is completely dependent on Russia for all military and economic matters, and followed them into the war, allowing them to use their tactical position to launch their offensive. The neighbors kept close ties even after USSR was dissolved. Today, authoritarian President Alexander Lukashenko needs Putin to remain in power after the contested election he won in 2020. Some have yet to make a decisive choice. Narendra Modi, India's Prime Minister, abstained from the UN condemnation vote, as well as UAE and China, who we'll look at afterwards. He has the tough job of balancing growing relations with the West and its historic friendship with Russia. Their relations are of a strategic nature, as India is Russia's largest weapon customer. They have spent billions on Russian-made fighter jets, submarines, and tanks, creating a complete situation of independence. Xi Jingping, China's dictatorial leader, has also offered an elusive response. While not openly joining Putin's side for fear of American sanctions, they have nevertheless declared USA and NATO to be at fault for installing troops at Russia's borders. Also, they recently held a naval drill with Iran in the Indian Ocean, showing their military cooperation. One thing is for sure, a China-Russia alliance could radically change the current world order, especially considering China's similar situation in Taiwan. In South America, Brazil also decided to remain neutral, despite President Jair Bolsonaro's important alliance with Russia, military, technological, and agricultural. Russian fertilizers are crucial for Brazil's farming industry. He is close to Putin, having scolded his vice president for condemning the invasion. A much more vocal South American, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro openly praised Putin and criticized the Western sanctions. Despite many countries opting for the safer bet of neutrality, we can begin to observe the outline of two major blocs. On the one hand, NATO and the US, and on the other hand, China and Russia. Of course, I only had time today to look at the major powers, but the differing stances of other ex-URSS countries, or Poland, whose football team refused to play Russia's in the World Cup qualifiers, for example, are also important. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to share the video and subscribe. Until then, stay tuned.